As the council communicators have. Very good tone. Good afternoon. Welcome to committee adjustment meeting of June the 23rd, 2026. Members of the public, staff, presenters, and members of the committee, please be advised that meetings are broadcast and recorded and made available on the internet. I'll meeting to order, so I need to forward this for the general nature thereof. Note that I will now turn it over to our planner Pierre to give us the reason for the meeting.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Committee of Adjustment is holding a public hearing in accordance with Section 45 of the Planning Act in order to consider two applications for relief from the zoning bylaw 2009-021, being the zoning bylaw for the Township of Selwyn. Described notice of public hearing was provided via prepaid first-class mail to all residents within a 60-meter radius of the property, subject to the applications, as well as by a sign posted on the subject properties. The notices were also available on the Township's website. The notice circulation complies to the requirements of the Planning Act. If a person or public body would otherwise have the ability to appeal the decision of the Committee of Adjustment of the Township of Selwyn, but does not make oral submissions at a public hearing or make written submissions to the Committee of Adjustment before the committee gives or refuses to give approval to the applications, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting to make written submissions to the Committee of Adjustment of the Township of Selwyn in respect of the proposed variances before the committee gives or refuses to give approval to the applications, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal unless in the opinion of the tribunal there are reasonable grounds to do so. If you wish to be notified of the decision of the Committee of Adjustment, you must make written request to the Secretary Treasurer of the Committee of Adjustment, providing your name and address or email address. The first application today is A09-26. This is for 615 Edenderry Line. This is a condition of a consent approval with the County of Peterborough, being County File Number B99-25. The variance is to reduce the size of their chain parcel from 20 hectares to 19 hectares. I find that the application meets the 4 tests of the minor variance. I recommend the application for approval. We have comments of no concern from Engineering and Construction, County of Peterborough, and the Autonomy Region Conservation Authority.
Stand on the line, Jamie Hoefling. Is there anything, Mr. Hoefling, that you would like to add to our planner's comments?
Hello, thank you, Chair. Yes, Jamie Hoefling here representing the Wozni family. We approve of the planner's recommendations for approval.
Very much. Madam Deputy Clerk, is there anyone who has asked to be registered online for or against this application? We have no one else here for this application, Madam Chair. Thank you very much. I'll bring it to committee. Any questions? None. We'll move on to the next application, please. A10-26.
Applications.
Okay, thank you very much. And I understand the agent, Holly Richards Conley, is on the line. Ms. Conley, is there anything to add to the planner's comments? Holly, can you hear us?
Oh, now I can. Sorry, there was no volume. I couldn't hear anything. Through you, Madam Chair, I have nothing else to add.
All right, thank you very much. Madam Deputy Clerk, was there anyone that registered for or against for this application? You have no one else to wrap. Thank you very much. I'll bring it to committee. Any questions? Seeing none, I will now, there's no deferred matters. I'm looking for someone to move both of the applications. Moved by member Boyko, seconded by member Black, all in favor. That's carried. Thank you very much. We have the minutes of our committee of adjustment meeting 26. Now someone move those. Member Kulis and member Henry, all in favor. That is carried. Thank you. And motion to adjourn. Our next meeting is July the 14th. Member Henry and member Black, all in favor. That is carried. Thank you. Right. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Township of Selwyn for our regular council meeting of Tuesday, June the 23rd, 2026. We respectfully acknowledge that we are on the treaty and traditional territory of the Mishi-Sageg and Anishinaabe. We offer our gratitude to the First Peoples for their care for and teachings about our earth and our relations. May we honor those teachings. Please observe a moment of silence so the council, staff, and members of the public can quietly reflect on our duty to the community that we are trying to serve. Thank you. Members of the public, staff, presenters, and members of council, please be advised that meetings broadcast and recorded and made available on the internet. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? Seeing none, please note that. We have our minutes of June the 9th, 2026. Everybody had a chance to look at them. Is there someone willing to adopt them? Thank you. Councillor Henry, seconded by Councillor Poulos, all in favor. That is carried. And we'd like to welcome Kevin Jones, who was the Senior Consultant for Paradigm Transportation Solutions, to talk to us about the Lakefield Network Study. And welcome to members of county staff as well.
Thank you. Your worship, members of council. Oh, okay. I'm a little taller than the last person, I guess. There we go. Yes, thank you. Is that better? Yeah, your worship, members of council, I'm pleased to be here today to provide you a presentation on the update of our Lakefield Road Network Transportation Master Plan. And before I start, I would like to just acknowledge that, even though this was a county project, we, certainly value the working relationship we had with your local staff, your municipal staff that helped us as part of our technical advisory committee. We met a few times during the study just to help us, understand issues, local context, and plan sort of how we undertake the study. So those appreciations go out from the whole project team. So this project was a transportation master plan. It's been undertaken in accordance with the municipal class environmental assessment. The master plan deals with the first two phases of the 5-phase municipal class environmental assessment. So really we deal with looking at what are the problems and opportunities that we're trying to address, and then what are the range of alternative solutions and coming up with a recommended solution. The next 3 phases of the typical environmental assessment process involves getting into looking at alternative designs and coming up with measures to mitigate environmental impacts, of doing a preliminary design, and then getting into implementation. That's a sort of a separate stage. So the master plan will basically summarize the recommendations for the Lakefield Road Network Master Plan and document all the public consultation that we undertook as part of the study. So we've had 2 rounds of public consultation so far. Our first one was in October. We met in downtown, or at the arena in Lakefield upstairs to present the problems and opportunities and provide some early feedback. And then we had our last public information center in May. And many of you were in attendance there, and we presented our draft recommendation. We've got feedback from the public as part of that, and we've been able to confirm our recommendations, and we're getting ready to publish our final reports. So in terms of study area and purpose, the county is undertaking this plan to really come up with a road network plan to serve the Lakefield area as it grows in the future. As part of this study, the county is looking to assess the long-term need for a second crossing of the Otonabee River, and if justified, identify a preferred location for that. And then also we'll look at some interim improvements to the road network to serve and accommodate growth sort of in the interim horizon. But really the intent of this project is to prepare a corridor protection plan so that, when growth occurs and when the need does arise, that there is an option available to the county to move forward in terms of addressing some of the issues in the Lakefield study area. So in terms of key background and issues, I mean, there's a long history of sort of this type of planning activity. It started out in 2014 with the Transportation Master Plan that the county undertook. And at that time, they were looking at a forecast horizon of 2031 and identified, capacity issues in Lakeville. We're seeing some of them already. And identified the need at that time for a second crossing. Nothing was ever really implemented as a follow-up to that study. So in 2022, the county did an update to their transportation master plan, as they kind of do every 5 to 10 years. And again, the forecast horizon went out a little bit further, looked at, how community is growing and sort of, because a few things had changed, but still confirmed that a new or County Road 29, Bridge Street, Queen Street through the village would be over capacity by 2051. And recommended again that really that this study be undertaken to identify what's the optimum solution, widening through the village or protecting a new corridor. In the meantime, development and growth has continued in the community. There is a lot of future growth planned for Lakefield. A lot of it in the Lakefield South area, but also the Lilacs development and other developments in the community. So by 2051, Lakefield expected to have 3,500 new residents. And that's going to increase, travel demands through the community. So we did look at truck demands as part of our work on this, because we know there's a lot of daily truck traffic using the main road through Lakefield. There's about 700 trucks a day that use Bridge Street through downtown Lakeville. Not all of them are passing through. Some are, making deliveries to the businesses and so forth in the village, but there are a lot that are passing through as well. That's forecast to increase modestly in the future, about 6% growth maybe by 2051. But in terms of future, growth in population, that's going to be the driver of increases in traffic. Our estimates are about a 38% increase in traffic volumes on the main drag in Lakefield by 2051 over today's volume. So that's a pretty significant increase to a section of roadway that's already getting close to capacity at certain times of the year. So basically based on that sort of background and context, we identified a few key needs for the study area. One obviously is that Bridge Street or County Road 29 as it comes into the village is expected to operate at or over capacity by 2051 with planned growth, if no improvements are made. Any impacts to the bridge crossing, recognizing it's the only crossing really in the area, will have pretty devastating impacts on the community. It would sever the community, impact emergency response, and a whole host of other services that the residents rely on. And one of the things that came up through our early consultation is, from an active transportation point of view, the existing bridge crossing is quite constrained. There's sidewalks, yes, but there's no cycling facilities. The sidewalks are rather narrow. So it's not really a good corridor to promote sort of walking and cycling in the community. And that's growing over time as everyone, has begun to start enjoying those kind of modes of travel more and more. So there are you need to do some upgrades to really promote those sorts of opportunities. So as part of our initial assessment, we identified a number of potential crossing locations. We had 5, which includes actually improving the existing crossing. And we did some very preliminary assessment using our transportation model that we developed for the study area. It actually covers most of the county. And we screened out option number 5, which was a new bridge and road alignment down in the area of the 5th line corridor. What we found is, as you get further away from Lakefield, the improvements will still attract traffic, but they don't solve the problem. They don't solve the problem in Lakefield the further you get away. So what we did do is we carried forward 4 alternatives for a little more detailed evaluation, because they all sort of address the problem to varying degrees, but they did sort of solve the original problem. And so we have the existing option 1, widening the existing bridge. Option 2, which was a new bridge and a road alignment, to connect to County Road 33, sorry. And then a new bridge and road alignment to connect directly across to Highway 28 using the 7th line corridor. And option number 4 was a new bridge and road alignment in the vicinity of 6th line to again provide a connection over to Highway 28. So as part of our technical work on the project, we did do a number of background reviews. I mentioned we developed a transportation model through worked with the county on other projects. That was updated for this study to incorporate trucks, which was something that we didn't have in the model previously. And that gives us an opportunity to understand how people travel through the study area, how they travel through the community, what type of traffic is using the various roads, but also the interactions between Lakefield and Peterborough and Bridgenorth and Youngs Point and Duro Dummer, and how all that traffic flow, doesn't respect boundaries. So we're able to model that. And what we do when we build a model is we actually calibrate it so it can predict what we see today before we use it to forecast into the future. That was one area. Natural environmental, we did do reviews of natural environmental features, watercourses, wetlands, woodlots, all in the study area. We looked at the habitat areas and fish spawning areas, which is identified all throughout Eutoneby River, throughout the corridor. We looked at cultural environmental considerations, looking at archaeological potential for resource finds, built heritage resources, buildings and significant designated sites, including your sites on your municipal heritage register. And then we also looked at designated historic sites associated with the Trent Severn Waterway. So the Trent Severn Waterway itself is a designated historic site, but also Lock 25 down by the 6th Line area is designated historic site as well. From a socioeconomic perspective, we look at things like business impacts. We did a survey with a lot of the business owners in the community to understand, their attraction or reliance on traffic as part of their business, but also their reliance on parking and how they view, some of the challenges and issues with regards to future growth and options. We also looked at agricultural lands in the area, and then we looked at future and planned development. So, where you're growing, but also what's been committed to in terms of future growth, because that certainly has a bearing on how we structure some of the recommendations. So as we move forward from the sort of very conceptual level of assessment, we started looking at the 4 options that we carried forward, and we adopted another option that came out as we went through that. We developed these to a little bit what we call a conceptual level of design, so we could understand the impacts associated with them, understand what kind of property will be required to implement some of these, but also how they might affect different features in the study area. And so the first 2 I have on the left side of the screen kind of represent alternative 1 and alternative 4. So alternative 1 is, as I mentioned, widening the existing corridor, along Bridge Street and then, into the village. Alternative 4 is sort of the new crossing down at the 6th Line corridor. And then the other 3 on the sort of the right side of the screen are sort of a family of options that utilize an upgraded 7th Line and provide a new connection across the river, but terminating at different locations. So the first alternative 2A was a crossing that kind of veered over and hooked up to County Road 33. Alternative 2B was a sub-alternative of that we looked at to optimize the alignment and improve on a few issues that came out with alternative 2A. And then alternative 3, instead of tying into County Road 33, it continued all the way across to connect directly to Highway 28 as another option. So they're all very similar in some of their performance, but there are some differences as well. We went through a sort of a more detailed evaluation of each of these alternatives. We actually looked at 27 different criteria, grouped under sort of the 5 headings that I've listed here, just to kind of summarize the evaluation results. And as you can see, we've kind of ranked them with the red dots being sort of least preferred and green being most preferred from each of those evaluation categories. And you can see fairly clearly that, alternative 1, the widening of the existing corridor, and then alternative 4, the new corridor at 6th Line, really ranked poorly on a lot of the evaluation criteria comparatively to the other alternatives. The 3 sort of, that follow the 7th Line corridor work the best in terms of all the evaluation criteria, with alternative 2B being sort of a new bridge crossing somewhere in the area of 7th Line on a skewed angle to tie into County Road 33 as being preferred from a number of perspectives, including sort of some of the cultural and environmental factors, the socioeconomic and the transportation. As I mentioned, we have undertaken a series of engagement events through this project. Our first open house had about 115 attendees. We got 11 comment forms, 49 emails, 69 or 66 online comment forms. And we took a lot of that feedback into consideration as we sort of adapted and evaluated each of the alternatives. In fact, we added a few criteria that people raised. So you got to look at things from this perspective or from this perspective. So you added some criteria to help us do that evaluation. Following the open house, we had a separate meeting with business owners in the community because we recognize a lot of them, they were running their businesses and they couldn't come to the open house. So we gave them a separate event to come out and, let them, learn a little bit about the project, answer some of their questions, get some of their feedback. We also introduced a survey so we can get a little more detailed information about them, just to understand sort of how their business relies on traffic and the transportation network. Our public open house number 2 had about 120 attendees. We got 19 sort of comment forms at the meeting. And I believe we've now up to around 26 online comments that have come in during the comment period, which is now closed. We've also met with First Nations. We sent out notifications to all 9 sort of communities, First Nations communities. We did have follow-up meetings with Curve Lake, who expressed an interest in talking to us about the project. Their interests are more into the next stage of the planning, where you would actually get into design activities and doing actually more detailed archaeological investigations. But they did express some issues and considerations that we need to think about as you move into the next stages of designing. We had our technical advisory committee, as I mentioned, with municipal staff from both Douro Dummer and Selwyn. We've had 3 meetings with that group just to kind of update them on the study and also to get information and feedback from them on implications from their perspectives. We also had a meeting with Parks Canada to talk about, crossing the river. You have a navigation channel. It's under their jurisdiction, but also it's a heritage resource from their perspective. So we wanted to understand some of those sensitivities. In terms of key feedback, generally we got some acknowledgement and support for the need for a second cost. The key issue is, where do you put it? People, expressed, concerns with the loss of parking in the downtown with some of the options. What kind of impacts would be felt in the downtown? Some location related concerns about which crossing location was chosen. There was concerns about extra traffic and trucks on 7th line from a lot of the residents and how that influences the safety of, that corridor. There was concern for potential impacts to natural features, habitat areas, and species at risk, wetlands, and water quality in Tonopah River. So that's something that certainly has to be considered with any new crossing of the community that doesn't involve the existing. And even the existing would have some of those issues because you're widening a bridge across the Tonopah River as well. And also concerned about direct impacts to residences, private properties, and agricultural lands. And then, really, how does this new crossing connect with the road network in Lakeview? We did hear kind of very strongly that, people really didn't think a bypass was the right solution. They wanted connectivity into the village, so it supports the village, not just bypasses and this is the village. So that's something we took very seriously when we were looking at, how each of the alternatives performed. When we came at our second public information center, we got one suggestion from a member of the public, actually a couple of people that I talked to personally, saying, well, why don't you, instead of recommending a corridor that takes the front of a lot of the properties along the 7th line, why don't you put it in the back of some of those lots, because they're very deep and sort of adjacent to the Lakefield South secondary plan area. And maybe that would be a better solution. So we actually said, let's have a quick look at it to see if that warranted sort of a more in-depth evaluation. Now, unfortunately, there are a number of issues that we did identify with that alternative that we sort of put on this slide. I know it's maybe a little bit small, but while it would impact the rear of some very deep lots, so you would have a road on both sides of those properties, which is certainly a downside from enjoying your property, but it does avoid some of the acquisition from some of the front yards of some of those lots. But it isn't really compatible with our preferred alignment of alternative 2B. And one of the reasons 2B was preferred from a technical standpoint is because the alignment allows us to pull the road further away from the sewage lagoons on the east side of the river, reducing a lot of risk. So the closer you get to those lagoons and you start excavating for a road and building a road there, there is a lot more potential that you may have some impacts. And you need to do further geotechnical work to understand, how feasible that is, how close you can get. But this other alignment actually has a much more gentler curve to it and allows you to pull the roadway away, minimizing some of that risk. The alternative to put a new road through the back of those lots does actually affect some of the provincially significant wetland that kind of comes through the Lakefield South secondary plan and kind of comes into the back of those lots. So that would be a new impact. There's additional property displacements on on the east side of the plan area where you would go through a couple of properties that you would have to displace fully. And you would have some changes to the draft plan for the Lakefield South in terms of how you would connect the roadways to this new corridor. So for a number of reasons, we said, yeah, it looked good on paper, but as you start looking at some of the drawbacks, we weren't able to recommend that as a preferred solution. So our recommendation, is two parts. There's a number of road network improvements that can happen in the interim and will be required. Some of them you already know and have been, talked about through approvals of the Lakefield South secondary plan area with, signals at County Road 29 and 7th line and signals at County Road 29 and Water Tower Road. That's all already been kind of debated as part of the secondary plan, but also upgrades to 7th line to accommodate the traffic coming out of that secondary plan area. That's going to happen regardless of what happens with this new corridor. We've also suggested, in part to improve active transportation, is extend the sidewalk along County Road 29 a little further to the west from where it ends by the school and take it out to at least the Water Tower Road to bring those new residents and give them access through on foot to other parts of the community. The major recommendation coming out of this study is to protect the corridor for future second crossing of the Otonabee River. Our preferred location is based on what we call alternative 2B, which includes upgrading 7th line and a new road connection to cross the river and tie into County Road 33. Now, we've identified this as an alignment on a skew, but we recognize that as you get into more detailed environmental investigations during the next stage of planning, you might need some flexibility for where that bridge gets located. So we've actually identified a wider property protection area crossing the river and on the east side of the river to give more options. And really the property protection, all it does is it forces you as a council and the county as sort of an approval authority to make sure that if development is planned or proposed in a certain area, that it doesn't conflict with that property protection area. So it keeps your options open for the future. So we've also extended that property protection area onto the north side of County Road 33, which would allow for different configurations of how you tie into the local road network to be examined in those later stages of the study. There could be some benefits associated with that. So we thought that, adding that property protection area, this preserves those opportunities for the future when the county is ready to proceed with the next stage of implementation. We also recommend that, this corridor and this property protection area get reflected in the county and the local official plans. So that gives it some status similar to a draft plan approval for a development area. This would actually give it legal status and once it's in your official plan, and then that corridor becomes protected until, you decide either to not continue to protect it or you decide to implement. So as part of our sort of process now, we're getting to the end of our study. We've confirmed our recommendations. We would like to seek a resolution from council of support for the recommended solution so that we can now prepare a presentation to county council to request permission to file the environmental study group or the transportation master plan report for a 30-day public review period. So a draft council resolution is prepared in front of you that hopefully you will be prepared to endorse, that the presentation from Peterborough County Engineering and Construction Department regarding the Lakefield Road Network Transportation Master Plan be received for information, and that Selwyn Township endorse in principle the Lakefield Road Network Transportation Master Plan recommendations, including the corridor protection area identified in alternative 2B, consisting of future improvements on the 7th line and a new bridge connecting to County Road 33. In terms of next steps, we have gone through a review of all the comments we got from Public Information Center 2. We did do a little more review of one set of comments to see if there was a feasible alternative there. We've confirmed our recommended solution. It really hasn't changed from what we presented to the public. We are now seeking endorsement from local municipalities for the recommendation. We're preparing our transportation master plan report now as we speak, and we're getting ready for presenting to County Council in August of 2026. And that would really seek their approval to publish the transportation master plan report for a public comment period over the rest of the summer and sort of into the fall. So with that, I would certainly welcome any questions you may have.
Hey, before I turn it over to my colleagues, one of the next steps you have is to seek endorsement from local municipalities. So which municipalities are you seeking endorsement from besides Selwyn?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Madam Mayor. And so we have already presented to Douro-Dummer Council, and we did get their endorsement for the recommended plan. That was last week. The other municipality is Selwyn, because obviously we're right in your backyard, so to speak, your front yard. And so those are the two municipalities that we are seeking endorsement from. The rest will come through a presentation to broader county council.
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you. Are there any questions for Kevin? Councillor Henry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you. What are the practical implications of an in-principle endorsement by Selwyn Township? And will corridor protection restrict development, severances, building permits, or future land use on the affected properties?
Great question. Through you, Madam Mayor. So what the endorsement in principle would do is just give county council some comfort that the local municipalities have a chance to weigh in on the study and the recommendations, and then county council can make their decision about whether to endorse or send it back for more study. So that's really what the endorsement does. In terms of the corridor protection, so it does a couple of things. The corridor protection area is like a check. So if someone comes in to propose some development in an area that conflicts or is inside that corridor protection area, it gives the county and the municipality the opportunity to say no to that development with some status. So you've got some legal status to say no, rather than just saying we don't like this because. So that makes it harder to overturn. Once it's enshrined in your official plan, the province and even the Ontario Land Tribunal has to give, some weight to that status of the official plan. But in terms of, what else the corridor protection does, so it doesn't freeze all activities. If you're proposing to do something on your property that doesn't involve building a brand new structure or something like that, you can probably still go ahead. For a lot of the properties, the corridor protection, like say along the 7th line, is only along the front yard of their property. So the back, they can still do stuff on the back of their properties. They can still expand their house if it's falls outside of that area. If it doesn't conflict with the protection area, there should be no issues with proceeding and treating those like you would any other application for land use changes. It doesn't affect the ability to buy and sell property. There's corridor protection areas all over the county. In fact, the MTO has been protecting a corridor since the 70s on the east side of Peterborough, and it hasn't affected the ability of people to transact and sell the properties. Now, you may have to disclose it if you know of it to your real estate agent. Buyer beware. But there's no restrictions on what you can do in terms of selling your property or anything like that. When and if the county decides to implement, then they would go through the next stages of sort of planning. And that would be, so as I mentioned, getting into more of like the preliminary design, looking at different design alternatives, figuring out how the different intersections would function and work. And then as through that process, what typically happens is they would shrink that corridor protection area once they've identified, okay, here's the actual property that we need. And then once the county decides to go into an implementation, then they'd be looking to eventually acquire properties. That could happen either through the development approvals process, if there's development in the area, or it could happen through negotiated settlements with individual property owners when and if they're ready to acquire property. that would typically be something that would happen closer to construction. At this point, there's no plan to construct this corridor. We've used a planning horizon of 2051, just to kind of give us, a framework for when these issues would happen and when the solutions may be required. It'll be dictated by the pace of growth really in the community, how quickly development happens, how quickly some of the problems start to arise, and when the county needs to implement some of these solutions. Thank you.
Sorry, Henry?
Thank you. Follow up through you, Mayor Sennis. So if council supports the recommendation, what future decisions remain open to council, and what decisions become more difficult to revisit over the next 25 years? Are we simply acknowledging a planning study, or are we effectively committing the township to protecting a specific corridor before costs, timelines, property impacts, and funding sources are truly known?
So through you, Madam Mayor, there's a bit of a double edge on this question. So yes, I mean, you're not committing anything in concrete by endorsing the recommendation. The county, as they go through their routine planning process, they will be updating their transportation master plan, every 5 to 10 years. This is certainly something that would get reviewed as part of any one of those updates to reconfirm that, this is still the direction and the need is still there, and this is the best solution available. So that's something that the county would do as part of any update to a transportation master plan. And if at something changes in the future that may require revisiting, that's something that the county may do. So you're not locked into anything concrete by just endorsing the solution. By putting it in the official plan, that starts to get a little more concrete in terms of you're designating a corridor. And what that would do is just protect the corridor for the future. So you have opportunities to implement if and when you need to. Doesn't mean you have to, but it does give you the opportunity. One prime example is, after the 2014 Transportation Master Plan, the recommendation was to, kind of put a new road connection maybe through the Lakefield South development. But this type of study never happened. So there was no way to do that. So you couldn't protect for that corridor, and you couldn't ask the developer to change their plan to accommodate it because you had no legal status to say there's a need and here's the preferred solution. So the opportunity was lost. So what this really does is it protects those opportunities for the future that, if you need it, when you need it, you have that ability. But it doesn't commit you to constructing, and it doesn't commit you to even the actual design parameters of a corridor. That would be decided in the next stages.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Black.
Thank you, through Mayor Sennis. Thanks for the presentation, Kevin. The road widening that would be required on the 7th line would go from basically 20 meters to 36 meters. Is that, am I correct there?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, yes. The recommended right-of-way width would be 36 meters, which is pretty typical for a county road. The actual road platform wouldn't expand much wider than I think what you're already contemplating for upgrades as part of the Lakefield South development. But that right-of-way width just gives the county sort of that extra flexibility in managing that corridor.
So essentially that's taking away about 25 feet on either side of front lawns of those homes, essentially.
Through, yes.
About that amount. So that's a big impact on the houses that are on the 7th line. I know you looked at the possibility of creating a new road to the north, which again, I agree, it doesn't make sense. We had a lot of issues with the creek area through there, even through Lakefield South planning. Did you look at going south of the homes on the 7th line again to create a corridor? It's through farmland, which we like to protect as well. But was that considered as another option for 2B?
Through you, Madam Mayor, no, we didn't consider another corridor just to the south of 7th line, like a brand new corridor. We did look at one further south at 6th line. We looked originally at one at 5th line, which would have been almost a brand new corridor, but it was too far away to have any benefit to Lakefield. But no, we didn't look at one south of the 7th line. We did look at one to the north, obviously, as in response to some feedback we did receive.
Yeah, it's still not clear to me why you didn't look at the one south, though. I mean, again, you know, the disruption and the tying of these properties up, essentially, because again, there's the unknown. And those are all existing homes along the 7th line. Why you wouldn't look at something? I know nobody likes it in their backyard either, but the proper fencing and noise barriers and so on. That would make sense to me, that that's not gonna bother anybody really, and those properties along the 7th line aren't gonna be holding their breath for the next 25 years.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I mean, one of the challenges as you get south of 7th line, as you well know, there's not a lot of opportunities to come through and connect on County Road 29. So most of that area is already developed along the frontage, so you would be taking out maybe a garden center or, you know, Paris Marine or something like that to make that road connection over, or you'd be taking out other houses that front onto County Road 29 to make that connection. So there's no sort of really open area in that section to bring a new road connection out without impacting somebody. And those will be typically full removals, like you know, at least most of the property implications on 7th line are taking a little bit from the front yard of a property, not impacting the person's house. It, you know, brings the right of way a little bit closer to their house, doesn't bring the road any closer to their house. And, you know, they can still use their property and enjoy their property, you know, going forward. So that was seen to be, you know, less of an impact than putting a new road connection and having to displace some other properties to make that road connection happen, and finding a suitable place for that connection to tie in to County Road 20.
Any other question? Councillor Henry.
Thank you, through you. So if we're looking at 2051 to do this bridge, that tells me then that the current one is good until 2051. So what is the potential risk of delaying corridor protection at this time?
Through you, Madam Mayor. So there's two, I mean, the current bridge from a capacity point of view could last till 2051, but we already know that we already have congestion seasonal in Lakeville downtown. And you get backups from the Albert Street, Queen Street intersection that goes back past the school on some summer weekends. That's fairly rare now. By 2051, that's going to be more regular. That's going to happen more regular, almost like sort of typical afternoon peak periods. So that's one of the risks of delaying. But that being said, we always know that, and I always say as a transportation planner, forecasts are never wrong. It's only the year that's wrong. Because we don't really know. We're looking into the crystal ball. We're saying, here's what the plan is. Here's what the plan for growth. But as I mentioned earlier, growth can happen faster or it can happen slower than what we forecast today. So that's why the county does do updates to their, you know, their transportation master plan to take into account updated forecast, even updated demographics. And I mentioned, you know, in the 2014 plan, you know, it originally was envisioned this would be needed by 2031. But when they did their update in 2022, they looked at, you know, the demographic patterns of who's living and who's moving to Lakeville. And we found it's a lot more older community. The community is aging. You're not getting a lot of as many families, I guess, moving into the area. So that does change your travel demand. So when they updated the transportation modeling work to account for this older demographic, it pushed out that need a few years longer because, you know, we don't travel as we get to retirement age, we don't travel during the peak periods the same. We might travel in the middle of the day. We might travel different times. So that's something that happens normally through updates. And that's why timing is always a little bit of a challenge, but we do our best to try and estimate, you know, when that need is going to happen. The corridor protection will stay there as long as you leave it in your official plan and, you know, county leaves it in their official plan. So it does allow you to, or the county to implement, you know, when that need does arise, if it's beyond 2051, or even if it's earlier than 2051, you know, if both, you know, rockets in Lakefield and you get those problems happening soon.
So we have a resolution before us and we're looking for us to pass it. So is there someone to move the resolution? By Councillor Koulis and, seconded by Deputy Mayor Black. All in favor? That's carried.
You're speaking.
Madam Clerk, were there any questions?
No questions.
Much? Well, if you want to, oh, yeah. Now's a good time. And now we'll move on. Who is presenting Carla's presentation?
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. So Carla has prepared the report. I will just speak to it briefly. We did receive 9 applications for our new Community Partnership and Development Fund. The requested funding was just about 31,000 in funding requests. Just a reminder to council that we did allocate $10,000 for this program. I did want to also just note the Lakeville Agricultural Society on their checklist. They had indicated no in-kind support, but if you looked a little bit later on in their submission, they actually did allocate some in-kind support. So you might want to just be mindful of that. We essentially took their applications and created a format where all of the applications could be summarized for council to have a look at. So you'd have a really good sense of what's being proposed. So it's really up to council now to consider how you want to move forward and allocate the funds.
Okay, so, one thing that, I had noted after the fact, was that, I think going forward for next year, we should have added to the application or the applicants that if, would the applicant bring forward if they only got partial funding? Yes or no, because I think that's important to know. And if not, then no. So, what? That's why.
Thank you, Mayor Sanis. Yeah, this is really nice to see that there are this many groups, all based on volunteers that wish to do so many good things for the community. So I was really happy to see that there are so many groups that applied for this $10,000 funding. And it's nice to see too that is responding to our ability to actually fund something in a significant way, as opposed to the other fund, which I do not trivialize in any way. But as a result of the way those funds are divvied out, everybody gets about $150, $60, $70, which helps, and that's good. But it doesn't allow a substantial project to take place. So I was really happy to see this. Now, what we did not do when we created this Community Partnership and Development Fund program is determine how we're going to decide who gets the money. And so what I would like to do is put forward a motion that gives us a way to do this. And so I will read the motion, and that is that the Community Partnership and Development Fund program be amended to include the following method for evaluation and selection. And there are 4 points. Each council member ranks the choices by first, second, third, fourth, and fifth, ensuring that all choices do not exceed $10,000. That's 1. Number 2, that points are allocated as follows. First, 10 points. Second, 8 points. Third, 6 points. Fourth, 4 points. And fifth, 2 points. So for example, if applicant A, whatever that happens to be, if I pick it as my first and Deputy Mayor Black picks A as the first, that applicant gets 20 points, just as an example. And it goes like that. Point 3, lists will be aggregated by staff to create a total number of points allocated to each applicant. The applicants then, with this aggregate list, point number 4, applicants that receive the highest points within the allocated $10,000 to be considered for funding. Council then submit their list of choices to staff once they've done that. And at the July 14th council meeting, a staff report shall note the total number of points allocated to each applicant in order for council to consider the allocation of funds for the Community Partnership and Development Fund program. Now, in any particular year, this year, we may end up with a tie. Well, we can discuss what we're going to do with that. We may have a year in which all of the applicants don't even add up to $10,000. Well, we can discuss what we want to do with that. But I believe that if we use this format of allocating points, that allows each council member to determine which he or she believes should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the staff can then come back with a report once we have the aggregate list. So that is my motion.
So I'd like to hear from staff on this, as to what their thoughts are.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. We were having a good chat about this today, and we were actually wondering, instead of being very specific about adding points, maybe you could just leave it with us. I think the understanding is you want to have some kind of matrix where you're identifying your ranked choices. We just are a little bit worried that if we add points to certain things, that we may skew results. So if you're agreeable to using a method of evaluation, and it may be just taking, because we want to think beyond just this application period and how future applications will be assessed. It may be looking at all of the applications that are submitted and kind of, in this case, we've got 9. So maybe we do 1 to 9, but we don't add a weighting to it. Maybe we do. It's just, we're a little bit worried when we tried to figure out a spreadsheet and using I'm going to have to rely on Lane because he's going to have to do a number of scenarios. And we also have to factor in that there may be, depending on how your choices come in, your top 1 or 2, depending on what they're asking for, may just use up your whole budget. So I'm not sure if you're agreeable to not being so specific and giving us an opportunity to kind of work through a matrix and run it through a few different scenarios, if you're agreeable to that. So in this case, if we were to just kind of amend the resolution a little bit so that staff would develop a ranking process where each member would rank their specific choices, and then using whatever that method is, we would bring back that list. So each council member's rankings would be made public, and then we would aggregate that into a final summary. And then council can use that to determine how they want to allocate the funds.
What does the mover and seconder think?
I'd like to hear what other members of council think.
Well, I'm okay with the direction that has been given. And I can see where there might be some problems if we do use the points thing. It could be ties. There could be, what if 9 organizations, 1,000? You know, how do you, so I'm just not sure as to what Angie is proposing, how that's gonna work. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I asked what other people think, because I don't understand Angie's matrix, how it would be different than the point system. I don't understand.
Through you. So the first, I just want to flag, we actually had another group who did not submit because they didn't think that they qualified, but they actually did. That was the Annisquam Seniors Club. So there's still a hurdle here. People understanding if they have qualified or not. Just let me know. The second point here is we did touch on this when we were talking about what this would look like operationally, and I flagged, like, I was just worried about the political bias that we would have in making these votes. And so my biggest feeling here is, yes, I want to be as accountable and transparent as possible. I agree with taking a step back and thinking about this a bit more, but my question here is, how long is that going to take to get people money?
through you, Madam Chair. So like the recommendation is that a report would be brought back to the July 14th meeting. So I think we would have time to work through the matrix and get that off to council. You can make your selections and get it back to us so that we can summarize that and get it into a staff report. And just to be clear, we're still suggesting that council's ranking things. It's just you're maybe not adding weight to the ranking in addition. Like, so for instance, instead of your first your first selection having 10 points, maybe you don't need the points. Maybe you just rank it from 1 to 9. Yeah.
Okay, and the question about when the money is given?
Yeah. So once council makes their decision, we can get like check requisitions together fairly quickly.
So you're going to give the money as soon as we make a
Sorry,
decision?
no. So we would provide, no. So just to clarify through you, Madam Chair, we don't give any money until the applicant has completed the project and provided proof that the project completed with proof of payment. So what they'll be advised is that they'll get the eligible money provided they provide the final report.
Just for clarity's sake.
Thank you. One last follow-up question. The back and forth here between the staff and the politicians is a little daunting to me, because usually if the report comes to us, we have a discussion here in council, and if we either pass it or we ask for another report to come back, and there's a distinct gap in the creation of the report and us making the decisions, where this is like a back and forth of the single, not a single report, but there's a back and forth that's closer here. And I just worry the extent to which that allows staff to be neutral in the process itself. So I'm just wondering if there can be any clarification on, like, are we still adhering to that by doing this way?
Through you, ultimately it's up to council to decide how comfortable they are with the process. There's nothing to prevent you when we come back on July 14th. If you feel that you need more time or an amendment to it, that we can't do that.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Black.
Thank you, through Mayor Senes. No, I think I agree in principle. The ranking system, I think, gives every member of council their position or their thoughts around which projects are most valuable. I'm very impressed that we have this problem to work on today, with given the short notice of the approval of the grant and the number of organizations that have come through all throughout the county. And I'm just pleased that we can share in their success in some of these projects as well. So, you know, the matrix, I think, is really what we're looking for, a ranking system. I'm not 100% sure the point system does make a difference. I don't disagree. Maybe we should be ranking them 1 to 9, but only the top 5 would get points or whatever. And maybe the simplest way is to just rank them 1 to 9, and then, you know, not get into the weeds any further on that. And, you know, as far as the politics, we're politicians. We're here to make political decisions, and unfortunately, these are positive decisions. So anybody that doesn't get funding this year can reapply next year, or there's other ways of getting grant money for their projects as well. So I think it's the matrix of any kind. I think at this point would work for us, but simplifying it for year 1, and it is year 1. We're going to have a learning curve on this moving forward, and maybe today that's the simplest approach for to bring it back to council on time.
Councillor Henry.
Thank you, through the Mayor Senes. Sorry, I just came back. Do we put a clause in this where you can't get it every year? Put a time frame in that? Yeah. Or apply it, okay.
So I would like you to give us the wording on what we're approving now, because it's changed a bit from John's. And I would like to know, are you looking for us to give the rankings to you prior to July the 14th?
Through you, I can read it back, and yes, we would be asking for council to provide those rankings so that we'd have a report for you for July 14th.
If I could, I think I could read it, and we can see, is this I think this is what great. And thank you very much for the conversation. I learned from it and I agree. So the motion that the Community Partnership Development Fund be amended to include the following method for evaluation and selection. Each council member to rank choices first to ninth, in ensuring that all choices do not exceed $10,000. And it could say simply first to last, and then it could
Yeah.
every year. Strike out the second point. Lists will be aggregated as a matrix to create a and finally, applicants to receive the and the council and the staff will return that matrix to council on July 14th for a decision.
Okay. So moved by Councillor Boyko, seconded by Deputy Mayor Black. All,
Just- Well, just, could I, is that,
Yes, yes, that's fine.
that works?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
okay.
Okay, thank
In
you.
favor? That's carried. Thank you. Right. Now we have Brian Brisbane. He's going to be talking about the parking bylaw. Brian.
Yes, thank you, through you. The report before council is on the proposed new parking bylaw for the township. This bylaw is not a complete rewrite of the township's parking regulations, rather it's a consolidation of all of the existing parking bylaws, from the former Smith, Ennismore, and Lakeville wards. Most of the regulations remain the same. There are some changes that come in through alignment with the Highway Traffic Act, the AODA, and some other authorities afforded to municipalities for parking. By way of background for council's awareness, municipal bylaws, if there's a conflict between the bylaw and the Highway Traffic Act, the Highway Traffic Act will always supersede. So we've had to align our parking bylaw with some of the regulations under the HTA. Some other changes to the parking regulations are outlined on page 2 of the report. Probably the most notable of the two is the removal of municipal, or rather township parking regulations on Bridge Street and portion of Queen Street, which are under the jurisdiction of the county. The former municipal act or enabling legislation at the time the bylaw was written in Lakeville allowed for the township to regulate on county roads. The current municipal act no longer allows for that process. So those regulations on those highways will be falling to the county, and they're being brought forward to county council, I believe, tomorrow on June 24th. The second notable change between the two is also steering away from the Provincial Offences Act and enforcing this through a system of administrative monetary penalties, otherwise known as camps. We can discuss that report following this one afterwards. The issuance of parking tickets and parking enforcement within the township will continue to follow the complaints driven or responsive enforcement model. It's a similar model that's used by the county where staff go out and enforce parking regulations based on complaints. Here in the township, we'll be using our third party contractor Maxima Protection Inc. They're an existing parking enforcement group. We just have an appointment bylaw attached to this report because we had to change some of the legislation to allow them to enforce in the AMPS system. And the county will continue to enforce through their third party on all county roads within. The report includes a background on penalty amounts. So the former bylaw had very dated penalty amounts. The new penalty amounts under the new parking bylaw are aligned with the township's comparators. And I would say they're very much middle of the field as far as what those offenses are and penalties associated. Notably, though, there are several regulatory offenses where we had to have very high offense amounts that are set by statute. So accessible parking, parking electric vehicle charging stations, etc. Yeah, I think that's a high level overview. I'd be happy to turn it over to council for any questions.
So I have a couple. When we've passed parking bylaws in the past, we sometimes had trouble with local towing companies not wanting to tow. We're going to be okay if we need be.
Yes, through you. So staff considered that. We've spoken both with the Ontario Provincial Police and Peterborough Police Service about who they use for towing providers. We've identified 3 providers in the city of Peterborough that have the requisite impound lots and towing services and necessary insurance to provide those services for us. So I don't foresee any issues or conflicts with the local providers.
Okay, and my second question is, what kind of hours does Maxima work? They work on weekends? Do they work at night? What's,
Perhaps I could defer that. Well, sorry, our manager of building planning isn't here. He manages the contract. My awareness right now is that Maxima has a number that they're called, so it's ad hoc, it's responsive. So just to be clear, there will not be any proactive parking enforcement at the present time under this bylaw. It will be all reactive and
questions?
Through Mayor Sennis, I think the biggest challenge with the parking is the enforcement piece. That it's great that we've had this update. It's a lot of hard work. Congratulations on the report. It's a really good report. But really, the enforcement has always been the issue with the park. We could put up all the signs we want, but with it being complaint driven, by the time the complaint comes in and gets responded to, they're gone. So is there any opportunity for somebody like Maxima once a week to drive around and check and post a few tickets that at least people think we're looking?
Yes. Angie.
Sorry, through you, Madam Chair, just to, because Robert isn't here, we actually have had Maxima do exactly that. So where we have had complaints and known problems, he will then contact Maxima and say, hey, we need you to do some proactive enforcement. So we would be able to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that makes it all the work that Ryan's put into this worthwhile moving forward, because people have to believe that there is a penalty for constantly parking in the wrong spots. We have to send a message somehow. So appreciate that comments.
It's great.
Thank you. I also add that thank you for this report. We've been waiting for this report, and so thank you very much for all the work that has been put into it. For any bylaw to be effective, it needs to be legal and reasonable and enforceable. And I again worry about the enforceable part. Couple of questions. First, through you, Mayor Sennis. The specifics in parking in Lakefield, the report has it listed in great detail. You can't park on this side of the road and you can't park there. It's great. The problem is I can't picture too many people in Lakefield reading this report or checking our website. The only way they're going to see this is through signage. So there are some signs that exist now, but the report also says that there's some signs that need to be changed, put up, taken down. So when will these changes in signage be done?
Yes, it's a great question. Because this is a consolidation of many existing parking bylaws, specifically the legal parking bylaw, I would say the majority of signage that's existing reflects the regulations that are within this bylaw. In Lakefield, and as the case throughout all the wards, we're still going to have some gaps where signage is missing, signage needs to be updated, or in certain cases, signage has been installed by members of the community and we have to remove it. So what staff have proposed is triaging the problematic areas first. For council's awareness, regulatory signage, specifically parking signage, is very expensive to purchase. And also the labor to install it. So what staff are proposing is triaging, identifying problematic areas first, and then including budgets for parking signage updates in the next few fiscal years. That will allow Public Works, Parks and Recreation, other departments to identify areas, install signage if necessary. 2 areas that I would imagine would be addressed this year would be the Peg Boulevard near the campground. There's an island there that 3 sides of it already a parking prohibited area by means of a fire route and towaway zone. It needs additional signage just so people understand they can't park on that boulevard interior curb. And then the other area would be Rabbit Street North, Stanley Street, just to address concerns and challenges faced by the fire department, the apparatus turning around there.
And perhaps Stanley Street, because the fire department has trouble navigating with cars parked there. That's a quick.
My second question, it also deals, thank you for that. A second question also, it deals with enforcement. So it's going to be a couple of years before we have signs up everywhere where signs need to be. With respect to enforcement, I have had a number of calls over the last 4 years, emails. I don't think many people know that the Peterborough Police do not give out parking tickets. According to the Peterborough Police Lakefield or Selwyn contract, the Peterborough Police do not give out parking tickets in the city of Peterborough, but they do, according to our contract, give out parking tickets in Peterborough, according to the contract. So will this bylaw necessitate a changing of the contract? And how will the Peterborough Police be contacted about that? Because there's now a disconnect. If we pass this, there'll be a disconnect.
Through you. So yes, the Peterborough Police Selwyn contract, as well as the former or existing parking bylaws and this new parking bylaw, all allow and have provisions for the police to issue parking tickets. The challenge with that is twofold. One, as council would know, there's a very high demand and pressure on the police to focus on, I would say, more critical or urgent policing matters than municipal bylaw parking enforcement. Frankly, I'm not aware of any police service that any longer does parking enforcement on behalf of municipalities in the province. Secondly, and I think equally as challenging, is a number of years ago, the province changed the terms and conditions of the PARIS system. That's the police automated registration information system. That's the data bank that police use for speed enforcement, searching license plates. They used to use it for parking enforcement. When the terms and conditions were changed, the province removed the police's ability to use that system for parking enforcement. So my understanding is staff's discussions with police prior to my arrival here is that police echoed that inability to use that any longer. All that to say, the new parking bylaw does include provisions for police to enforce it with the police jurisdiction included in there. So OPP and any of the other wards or Peterborough Police within Lakefield. That was intentional. That's so that police can still order vehicles to be moved, tow, impound, or restrain vehicles on the spot, or issue parking tickets in the unlikely event that their mandates and terms and conditions change. So the township is allowing the police to do that. We're encouraging the police to do that. It really is on the provincial powers and the police's limitations as to what capacity they'll be involved with this bylaw.
One final question, if I could, to you, Mayor Sennis. This deals with communication again. Right now, as I said, I get not a lot, but I get calls and emails about people parking illegally. And how will people know in the future, going forward, that they shouldn't call the Lakefield Ward Councillor, they shouldn't call the mayor, they should call Maxima, and no matter how much we try to tell them to do that, they're still going to call the mayor or the ward councillor. My question is not only that, that's one, how can we communicate to people that this is the new bylaw and it's by reaction? So we're asking people to tattle on neighbors and people who are parking illegally. But the other question is, if I call Maxima because there's somebody that's parked illegally on my road, where is the Maxima person coming from? How long will it take that person to react and get there?
Through you. So I can answer the first part of that question first, perhaps. So recognizing that portions of Queen Street and Bridge Street are no longer being enforced by the township and going back to being regulated and enforced by the county, staff have worked with county communications staff to start working on a communications plan that will be mirrored both at the county level and at the township level. We're going to have dedicated parking pages on each of our websites. They're going to, again, mirror each other in nature. There's going to be some detailed maps in there to demonstrate what are county roads versus municipal highways within the township. And it also explain who to contact as part of that. The details of that are still being worked out. It's still being drafted right now, but I would imagine that certain elements such as changes by an extension of 1 hour for the seasonal parking prohibition, we communicated on the township existing communications platform seasonally as we already do. So there is a plan and it's being rolled out jointly between the county and the township for that. With respect to the second question, Sorry, could you please just reiterate? what we saw?
I will, through you, Mayor Sens. Yeah, the second question, and we know the communications, the only real communication to tell people about where they can and can't park are the signs. So the second question was, if I called Maxima and saw, because I saw somebody that was parked illegally, and it bothered me to the point where I'm gonna call somebody, how long would it take Maxima to get there? On average?
Through you. So I don't know that I can answer that question. Maxima's office is in Peterborough. So in theory, they could just be coming from Peterborough to the 20 or 25 minutes to respond. However, I don't know what their staffing structure looks like. I don't know what their scheduling structure looks like. So if they have staff deployed elsewhere in the county or even elsewhere in the region, they're using those same staff to address challenges in Lakefield or elsewhere in the township. I'm not sure how long it will take them to respond after hours.
Okay, thank you. I said at the outset of my comments and questions that for a bylaw to be effective, it needs to be legal, reasonable, and enforceable. I think it's legal and I think it's reasonable. I still have great qualms about whether this is enforceable.
Big pause.
I promise.
I have a question before I go to Councillor Koulis. Who's the county using? Are they using Maxima too?
Through you, no, the county uses Cooley Security. They're another independent firm. I'm not sure what stage of their contract or if there's a contract with Cooley.
Yeah. Councillor Koulis.
Thanks through you. This has been a good conversation, but it's making me think of other questions that I otherwise wouldn't ask ahead of time, so I apologize for that. I just want to clarify. So the report indicates that we're allocating money from Department 20 operating budget and 40. Is that this year or next year? It's associated with the signage cost.
Through you. So I expect there would be limited signage costs in this year from both those budgets to address problematic areas. One, staff have triaged them and determined the immediate necessity for certain areas. But the intent is to really spread those costs out over a number of years. So it could be next year, it could be through to 2028. Again, the signage is extremely expensive to purchase, so we just don't want to have a huge fiscal or financial hit to one single fiscal.
Follow up that. And then can we state clearly how much is it going to cost to secure a contract out to Maxima? Does it depend on each call or is it a chunk of money each year? And which department is that specifically coming from?
Through you, I would have to refer back to the Maxima agreement. I think it is an hourly rate that we charge right now, along with a increased cost for vehicle usage, but I would have to confirm that by going back to the Maxima agreement.
Okay. So, Councillor.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Santos. Bryden, thanks for bringing a balance to the townships. Our parking bylaws here. Let you know Smith Board definitely appreciates it. I am echoing some of Councillor Boyko's concerns here, because many of the things that we do here are based on cost recovery. How much is a parking ticket going to run? So this is cost recovery after we put in our signs and we pay someone to drive to Peterborough to write a ticket. I'm just curious.
Through you. So the schedule, so the actual schedule to the bylaw includes the list of penalty amounts. High level, the amounts at the low end are $40 per penalty amount, and on the high end, they're $300 per penalty notice. The $300 again is the accessible parking spaces. Another higher penalty amount would be electric vehicle charging stations. I believe they're $125. And then some of the more problematic penalty notices that we have been allocated $75 penalty amount. So it varies on the impact that parking offense has created. But again, they're consistent with our comparator municipalities as far as penalty amounts, and we're in the middle of the playing field with those. The intent is with those penalty amounts, and then I can speak to it more under the AMPS bylaw, or sorry, AMPS bylaw report. Those funds will go back into Department 13, which will be used for bylaw enforcement, signage, etc. So we have an ability to recoup, even though let's say it's not viewed as an income source, but it is a funding stream.
Fair enough. And thank you. One more follow-up. Just curious, with the new prohibition appears to be primarily at overnight camping and unauthorized vehicle use in parks. How many complaints have we had over the last couple of years? Just curious.
Through you, I'm not sure that I could answer that without someone from bylaw enforcement or the manager of building and planning here. I do know that we get several complaints a year. One of them is the park, which is Fifes Bay. The name of it is evading me right now. But there's an ongoing challenge there with people using the water access point and then parking on the soccer field, which impacts the community. So I would say that there's a number of them each year, but the actual specific number, I'm not sure I can answer.
Appreciate that. Thank you. And I know Fifes Bay will appreciate enforcement of it.
Okay, if there are no further questions, we have recommendation before us. Someone move it, please. Moved by Councillor Henry, second by Councillor Poulos, all in favor. It's carried. Ryan, Bryden, we're on to the next report. Your business.
Thank you. Through you. So this report before council is on the Administrative Monetary Penalty System, otherwise known as AMPS. This is the system that we will be using to enforce the parking bylaw as a designated bylaw. For council's background, AMPS are a adjudication process used by the federal government, the province, and municipalities to really divert lesser offenses away from the courts and into a municipal or regulatory body while still maintaining procedural fairness. At the municipal level in Ontario, the framework for AMPS is provided under the Municipal Act and through Ontario Regulation 33307. The bylaws attached to this report meet all the township's requirements under both the Act and the regulation. The process is fairly straightforward. A person receives a penalty notice or a parking ticket in this case. Within 15 days, they have to choose whether to pay that amount or to dispute it. If they want to dispute it, there's a process township staff to follow. If they do not like or agree with the outcome from that, then there is the ability for that person to appeal it to an independent hearing officer, which would be assigned and appointed by the township. The hearing officer holds a hearing in accordance with the Statutory Powers and Procedures Act, and then issues a final hearing decision following that, and that decision is final. It's to cancel the ticket, hold the ticket, vary it, or extend the period of time the person has to pay the ticket. Excuse me. Essentially, AMPS remove any review by the courts except for in very, I underline this, very rare circumstances where there's a constitutional challenge that's been recognized by the Supreme Court or by the Ontario Court of Appeal. Yes, both all the bylaws attached to this report are quite lengthy and they meet that framework. So perhaps I can just answer any questions that's asked with names.
I have a question. Where would the hearings be held? Or hearings?
Through you. So our hearing officer bylaw allows for both virtual hearings and in-person hearings. The firm, Rutherford Prosecutions, almost exclusively does virtual hearings. So I would dare say most of them, if not all, would be virtual.
There are some people who don't have computers that would not be able to attend. So if there was a hearing, where would it be held?
Through you. So I would assume that the township would have to make accommodations, whether it's here in the boardroom or set up a virtual option for them. Again, the rules around hearings with the hearing officer are governed by the Statutory Powers and Procedures Act. So staff and the township don't have much flexibility. We have to follow those rules. And arguably, Rutherford Prosecutions, based on their experience of this, would guide us in what to do in that circumstance if someone didn't have city.
Any other questions? Councilor White.
Yes, through you, and thank you for this report. I think the process is a good one. I'm wondering about the money. The amount that needs to be paid to Rutherford Prosecutions to hear a case. Okay, and we can see how much that would cost. And so if I was going to fight a $40 ticket and it costs $450 to fight it, who pays Rutherford? Does the township pay? Or does the complainant pay if the complainant loses?
Through you, no, there's no cost to the person to appeal to a screening officer or a hearing officer. So the half day and full day costs that are included in the report would be paid by the municipality. Where those fees could be downloaded onto a person is through the administrative fees that the regulation prescribes, and that's for people who fail to appear at a hearing. So if someone has asked us to schedule a hearing, they don't show up at the time or place, then you would apply an administrative penalty to that. Another note for council's consideration is the volume of tickets I am told that go and make it to a hearing are far and few between. Speaking of Trent Lakes about a year ago when we were exploring this process, at that time had never had one single penalty notice actually go to a hearing. Typically, a screening officer is able to find a common middle ground between the offense and what the appellant is looking to seek for that. If we were to have a great deal of volume of penalties going to a hearing, you wouldn't just be holding a hearing for one single ticket or penalty notice. What you do is you schedule multiple in one single day, very similar to how the courts do with the docket system. So, you know, those $40 tickets, you could have 10 of them, and then it's paying for that hearing cost for that half day.
Yeah, thank you.
If not, I'm looking for someone to give a recommendation. Councilor Henry moving it, Deputy Mayor Blunt seconding, all in favor. Right. Center floor replacement.
Through you, Madam Mayor, certainly not a report I was hoping to bring forward. In my career, I haven't had to, prior, not having finished anything late or above budget. So I apologize that I'm having to bring this report forward. But certainly there's multiple reasons, and including the current cost versus when we first costed this out, having eaten up the original contingency, but the greatest one being that uncovering a 54-year-old structure does have some questions and does have situations that you really couldn't anticipate. We got a very experienced crew with Simcoe, Ball Construction, and Athletica, and not one of them had seen exactly what we have. Basically, it's the structure of it is a concrete apron that goes the whole way around, and that concrete slab, which is suspended and contained within that apron. We have a sand apron, so a sand apron is no longer permissible or advised, and we don't have a structural engineer that will sign off on that, because those questions, which I'm sure came to all of your minds immediately when you saw this, was why aren't we asking this? Why aren't we asked? We asked, and we asked, and we asked, because the last thing we want to do was, we never want to see anybody hurt or something built engineering or in a way that's not too standard and to engineering requirements, but at the same time, knowing that something has been certainly for 54 years and very good shape, even after a 2011-2012 upgrade, we had to ask those questions. So we are there at this point, and hoping that council will see fit to supporting this recommendation so that we can stay on time and complete the budget, complete the project with this budget.
Councilor Henry.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Sanas. Mike, I understand the situation that you're in here, so obviously you're gonna have to face some tough questions. What pre-construction, I guess you would refresh my memory, what pre-construction investigations or engineering assessments, condition assessments were undertaken prior to council approving the project, prior to tendering?
Through you, Madam Mayor. The, certainly, we had several different things, from concrete investigation when we first saw that there's, one of the, sorry, this is two parts of it. One, we had noticed that we were, losing, brine. So that was one of the obvious ones, didn't take a lot of investigation. But then when we did do an investigation with the, concrete experts, looking to maybe have, some x-rays done or looking to have some other investigation, it was quite evident where we were losing brine. So there was spider cracks, there was issues with us losing brine on a closed system. And then there was evidence in certain spots where we could see it leaching out. So that would have been, one of the first things. I know on the odd report, they did do some structural, but it was really mostly done through assessing the condition of the concrete at the time, because when the ice is out, you can certainly get a very good look at everything. In that particular area, it would have been very difficult to do until you actually cut the concrete, because it's 6 inches of concrete across the whole tub. So without that being removed, you really can't know that that is the condition that you're going to find. So, in that specific apron and toe area, there's little to no pre-investigation that can be done. It has to be done when the floor is being ripped out. So you can imagine this 780 3-foot by 6-foot pieces of concrete that got cut out. And as they're pulling out closest to the boards, that's when they see that the underpinning has no concrete, no actual concrete apron. So there was definitely nothing in that particular area because there was no access to it.
Thank you. Follow up. What specific risks then are we finding that would remain or justify an $80,000 contingency after the slab has already been removed and structural issues been identified?
Through you, Madam Mayor, that's strictly if timing gets bad and we have to throw money at labor. So we right now we're on time to open on the 14th of September. And if something was, something took 2 days, if they were saying it was going to take a day, or something takes 5 days, if they were to say, they said it was going to take 2, we would need to have the ability to say, okay, they bring in twice the staff, work overnight, come in on the weekend.
Thank you, through Mayor Sines. My concern was around the contingency, so we really haven't got a hard price at this point to complete that work. It's opened up right now. They can see what's there, but we're still allowing a 28%.
Sorry, through you, Madam Mayor, I don't think it's a 28 because it was a $2 million project. So it'd be 4% on the contingency. I understand you're saying of this
Of the additional
particular-
work, and this has this price, sorry, through you, Mayor, this is just for that work, so I'm not talking about the overall. Budget.
Okay. The 191 is the price we picked.
Okay.
So that is from the, so we do have a breakdown of exactly what's going to happen, what the cost will be, and the 191 gets us there.
Is the number, so
That's
it is a contract, but to do that work.
Yeah, and then they said if there was further testing or anything, then so the 15 is again, it's just a held item. They haven't said there will be testing, but if there is testing, then whether it's on the concrete, whether it's on the stability of the existing conditions or of the conditions that will be oriented, that's our recommendations. Yeah.
Follow
So
up
it would be a commitment for the 191.
191. Okay. Is there any opportunity to recover any of this through the Ontario grant? Is the grant a percentage of the project, or can we add on and ask the province to support this additional cost in any way?
No, it wasn't based on percentage of the total project cost. We submitted the estimated cost and they gave us
a set amount that they would find, so.
Set about.
Yeah.
Not percentage. Good, thank you.
Thank you through you. I just want clarification on the financial impact here. That is consistent with the original funding approval, the additional costs will be funding internally with the open. F, the payment period being extended, how long do we anticipate that payment period being extended?
That's you, Madam Mayor. I think based on the dollar values that we're talking about, it's likely that it would be 1 year. So we're looking at a 4-year payback. Likely.
Thank you.
Right, if there are no further questions, we have this recommendation for us. We have to move it, so who is moving it? Seconded by. Seconded by Deputy Black, all in favor. Who's giving Robert's report? Jen.
For you, Madam Mayor, I'll give that changes in service level from the workful work, but they still will be offered on services. Staff has over the last number of months experienced very thoughtful service. Unfortunately, so what will take place for the recommendations in the report is that as a intensity by the bylaw and team, they will make the as part of that to say they are proposing that this citywide software software that will be a lot of additional resource from understanding for resources. So that that acquisition will have a half year of licensing fee plus the implementation, and then we'll see in 2027 the 4-year cost of that. They will also, because they're not performing some of the duties, they will need to purchase about $5,000 like PPE and tools so that they can be safe and the animals can be safe. If they need to go out and do the animal control activities directly in the communities.
Questions? Yes.
Thank you, through Mayor Senes. What training will be provided to township staff before they begin responding to animal control calls, especially for aggressive dogs or injured animals? And will existing insurance coverage adequately address these responsibilities?
From the staffing perspective, staff do have some previous experience doing this work in their prior employment. So they feel that they have those skills to do so safely. Insurance. The risk to help with it.
Mr. Erdman.
Yeah, through you. So, yes, the township does have adequate insurance coverages for this type of work. It's no different than our existing bylaw enforcement coverages, which have been confirmed through our insurance provider a little over a year ago. So I don't foresee any additional exposures to this. The coverages recommended by townships insurer, whether it's third party or in-house, for this type of work are no different than any other type of bylaw enforcement. Thank you.
What's your coolest? Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. No, it's all right, but you get the name right today. Yeah, we often speak about customer service and our service standards. So I'm just wondering what service standard does staff anticipate for responding to dog bites, dogs at large, aggressive animal complaints once this responsibility shifts to our staff?
That's where you, Madam Mayor. That means some of the fitness staff breaking out conservative because they've been unable to get a full resource. So they will be working on a best effort basis and some of them will be learning. The Humane Society will provide some support that they work through the transition, but they won't be doing it. There's a limited resource.
But staff it'll be best effort and their response. I think it's very active while they explore other options to see if they can get some of the research, but for the moment, they could.
Councilor Fuchs. Thank you. That's a perfect segue. Right into my question. What other approaches that we considered? Is there contract available? Is there anybody local with this expertise that can be contracted?
Through you, Madam Mayor, staff have explored all of those options. There are some individuals in the broader community that perform the service for other municipalities. They are not complexly taking on another municipality, therefore distance or just because they don't have time, because they are fully engaged in the work of other municipalities, and the volume of calls don't really time profession. So most individuals that we do with so it's something to do in addition. One of the other options that we're looking at, which is probably a more longer term option, is whether there are any partners in the municipalities that wish to partner that would succeed to work through that. The neighbors are also an important for how to get it. So that's what's next on the table. That would be a month away. I look to see if there's anybody else that wants to share lines. But the services, security firms, that's anything that would assist by all particular.
So on the same track here, my follow-up question is what other local municipalities are in the same situation? So I'm just curious who we've reached out to, just for my background knowledge.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the staff have reached out to some of their homes in adjacent municipalities. So, here are some of the other municipalities in the county have been able to secure resources, those that are a little further to the east. That's where there is a third party that's doing some of the work. So we contacted them, but they've been able to get some resources. That's feedback.
Deputy Mayor Black.
Mayor Sennis, yeah, I guess my concern is the amount of time our bylaw folks already have, and maybe this is an opportunity to work with Trent Lakes and Duro and North Court, at least this side of the city, for bylaw enforcement for parking, and dog control and a number of these other sort of peripheral things that bylaw people don't typically deal with on a daily basis. I think that's an approach that's worth considering, sharing, an individual or a company contract in the 4 or 3 townships. It might make it more viable for a business to do that as opposed to one contract that has 71 calls a year. It doesn't make sense financially for a lot of people, but it might if it's more of a regional contract. So I would encourage staff to consider that.
Councilor Boyko.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Sennis, I'm referring to a paragraph on page 4E, first full paragraph in the last sentences, and I'll read it because it raises a question. It says the department responds reactively to complaints from the public and to internal department notifications. Complaints vary widely and include, but are not limited to zoning, noise, garbage, property standards, short-term rentals, snow storage, parking, and licensing issues, and now animals. And the last sentence is the one I want to ask you about. It says, although the actual impact will not be clear for some time, the added work-related animal control will further exacerbate a situation. Further exacerbate a situation lends me to think that already our bylaw enforcement officer is unable to keep up doing the best that can possibly be done, but already overwhelmed, and now we're adding something else. So 2 questions. One, the hours at which responses are available for all of those issues, and now barking dogs and other animals, is 9 to 5 on weekdays. Am I right? Yeah.
Yes, with some contract support but based on complaints where there are after hours to stay would be a parking item that was a specific complaint addressed, and then they made response well outside of normal business hours to look at a specific complaint.
Yeah, so that last sentence about exacerbate this situation, it's not a question more than a comment. Is that something that council may be looking for is whether staff would recommend coming up once we know how this looks and other things look, whether we will be looking at the necessity to hire another bylaw enforcement officer. So that this goes back to my comment about why have bylaws if they're not enforceable? And you can't enforce them if you don't have the personnel to enforce them. And if we can't contract out, then we have to hire in. So it's not a question, but a comment that we may be looking at in the future.
Yeah, again, to you, Madam Mayor, that's exactly what staff are looking at, and particularly with having the software, thinking that the software is a good way to collect some data, so we have some real measure points on how much of a resource we need. And also looking at potential shared services, whether it's a full resource or it's a third, it's a quarter, and having some of that quality data, as well as once the software is up and operational, it should provide some relief on the administrative component of the work, allowing them to have a little bit to be in the future, doing some enforcement as well. But that will be some transition and they go to full operation. So a couple of steps with using tools on the inside to get more field work, but also recognizing this probably will result in additional resourcing and finding whether it's a full resource or a shared resources. From the step.
Excellent, thank you.
Further questions? Some recommendation? Councillor Boyd for moving it. Seconding it, all in favor? Very thank you. Adam, can you talk about a landfill later?
Thanks, for you, Madam Mayor. As council is aware, in the 2026 budget, the landfill loader, the purchase of a landfill loader was approved. The landfill loader that we have up there right now is reached its end of useful life, approximately 14,000 hours. Typically, our useful life would be around a range of 10 to 12,000 hours. It is one of the most heavily used pieces of equipment the public works department has. It does move a lot of waste up there as well as applies covers the site. In the 2026 budget, we were hopeful to be able to repurpose the existing clan bucket that's on the unit. Due to some recent failures on that bucket, we have been able to patch it up, but it just doesn't make sense to further repair that. So we did go out and keeping consistent with our existing fleet that we have, we went to LASP procurement group for competitive pricing, and 3 formal quotes were provided. The John Deere, Volvo, and Caterpillar that included the new Craig bucket, and some increased costs in the cement market. John Deere provided a low bid of $420,945. This is approximately $91,000 over what our 2026 budget can allow for. We have made some recent purchases, purchases with our roadside mower and our culvert skimmer. They both came in under budget. That's a savings of approximately $12,000, which would be used to offset our draw on input. With that, I am requesting to award the bid to Brant, a local John Deere dealership, with an amount of more than $20,000.45, and that a future budget amendment be prepared for a future council meeting to include this additional funding for the Department 20 to
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Henry.
Thank you, Chair Marzanis. Thanks for bringing this before us, Adam. We got about a 30% difference here. What was originally budgeted, it's definitely not insignificant. I'm just curious, what assumptions were used when the 2026 budget estimate was developed? And when was that estimate there?
You, Madam Mayor. We presented the draft budget back in the fall. The original budget estimates were used then. Given the work history of the plan bucket, we were hopeful to be able to salvage that at that time. We weren't. So when I did go and get updated pricing this year, see what it was like to bring it back to council, we did see a considerable equipment cost increase in the market. And specifically that Craig clan bucket is about $60,000. So that did contribute to the ball.
Oh, thank you. So following this purchase then, if approved, what will the balance of the public works equipment reserve be? And do you anticipate any pressure on future equipment replacement schedules?
You, Madam Mayor, the typical purchase of a plow truck this year. So the cabin chassis has been delivered and that Viking cabin chassis is on site and Viking right now to put box and plow back on. So that additional cost will be deferred to the 2027 budget. Reserve numbers are sufficient right now, especially with our rate increases. So we'll be keeping an eye on those rate increases over the next 5 years with global reserves. But I did discuss with that and look at the reserves and evidence the burns of some of the plow truck costs into 2027. We'll have
Deputy Mayor Black.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor says, Adam, what do you think the value of we used, I know it's auction, have you got any history about what we might be recovering? I know the plan is an addition and it's majority of this cost, but what do we think we can get for the older machine?
You're not in there. You're kind of estimated, but we do typically use gut deals and we have got some good prices. We're hoping about $10,000 to get it. Value for this piece of equipment. Keeping in mind it does have $14,000 on it. And working out with the land, that's stuff off. So anybody who is bidding on it has been on it. So I think we are.
So some recommendation. Councillor Boyd. So who is seconding, all in favor? That's carried. I'm calling a 5-minute final break, seeing it looks like every then I'm gonna be cold. So we'll take a 5-minute break. Okay. All right, so we're into consent items. 5A has been pulled by John Boyd. Oh, John.
Yeah, I have questions that I would like to ask. I apologize for my insatiable curiosity. For items A, B, C, D, E, I won't pull F and G.
Yeah.
Right. So, the first item is with respect to the management review of drinking water. I just need to understand. Page 5, bullet 5, through you, Mayor Senes, what is a backflow prevention policy? Slash bylaw. And what is that? What exactly is the Minister of the Environment and Conservation of Parks recommending?
Adam.
Through you, Mayor Senes.
Yes.
I'll be answering that question, and
Okay.
thank you for your question. We appreciate your curiosity. And it's about protecting our municipal drinking water supply from uncontrolled uses of water in the system. A good example being a car wash. So it's all about protecting the system from any kind of backflow. If we were to experience a main break or a large fire, that can change pressure in the distribution system and potentially pull water backwards from, for instance, commercial users such as a car wash and pulling the detergents back in. So the backflow prevention is about protecting the drinking water system, and typically you have a policy or a bylaw.
Okay, excellent, thank you. And my second question, this is page 5, it's bullet, it says, drinking water license expires in June 2026, which is now. And the report also says that work will be required in 2025. So I'm confused by the use of tense. This is required in 2025. Was that work done? The license expires. Will it be renewed? So I'm just confused by that.
Yes, through you, Mayor Senes. Again, another fair question. Just understanding that this report is actually from 2025's work. So well in advance of the need for renewal of our drinking water license and permits. This was essentially saying that this is the work that needs to be done, and good news, we do have our renewed licenses and drinking water works permits.
Excellent, thank you. That's all.
Right, we'll move on to 5B. John.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Senes, I'm looking at budget and amendments. We agreed in the last council meeting that we're going to be pulling 89,000 from reserves because we didn't get the gas tax that we expected to pay a portion of the link. And today we agreed to pull 91,000 more from reserves for the loader. I know they're from different reserve accounts, but and 286,000 for the Ennismore Arena floor. All of these things are necessary. I don't question the necessity of pulling these things from reserves. But what we've got then is $466,000 has been pulled from reserves that we weren't expecting to pull from reserves. And so that raises questions in my mind about the health of these reserves from which these funds are unexpectedly being pulled. I know that's what reserves are for, to unexpected expenses. But I guess through you, Mayor Senes, to Lane, what comment have you got on the with respect to the health of these reserves and our reserves in general? And do you anticipate that there will be a need to rebuild the reserves in 2027 that could affect projects or purchases that we might otherwise support in our budget?
Sure, through you, Madam Mayor. Was council's aware, since day one, I've been a strong supporter of reserves. Almost annually, I get the question, like, when is enough for reserves? And I don't think we're there yet. But we are actually in a strong position in terms of our existing reserves right now. And as Councillor Boyko pointed out, that's really what our reserves are for. They take the bumps out of the way. And in this instance, we're using those reserves so that from an operating perspective, we can carry on and do the work that we need to do. And not be a burden on taxes. So just with respect to some of the examples, the general government reserve operates very much for us like a So it isn't necessarily identified like an equipment reserve would be. So when we rely on the general government reserve, we are definitely just offsetting unknowns or conflicts issue. But they're typically one-time expenses. So when we get into a situation where managers or myself are starting to look to the general government to offset on an ongoing basis, but that's like an indicator to me that they have to get away. They're looking at taxes. So that's with respect to general government, that would be a comment on that one. With respect to works equipment, definitely out of my, if not weekly, every other week, talk about the status of the public works equipment reserve. This is definitely not one of those schedules that just gets approved by council and then we move on. We look at it, they say quite often, and whenever an issue comes forward like this, where we've had some CPI increases, we've had pieces of equipment that we can't reuse and things like that, we rework that equipment schedule. I can say that with the steps that council has taken with respect to the phase-in of equipment rates, that allowed us to be able to move forward in this way. And that in future years, as we phase in over the next 5 years, we'll be in a good position. Is that reserve as healthy as I'd like it? I'd say no, but we do have adequate balances in the reserve to be forward. So we are closer to the level that I would like to see in that reserve after these changes, but I think we're still in good shape as we go forward, as long as we continue to implement our phase. And finally, with respect to the floor, we pretty much rely on about $4 to $6 million of working capital on an annual basis. That's what we're using this instance to fund that floor. And then the plan is to repay using our additional grant. We did a very similar situation like we had to replace that floor. We were very fortunate there to receive a large grant, about half of those, and then pursue an additional grant that I did. So with those two grants, and even with the cost overrun, we are looking at about a 5-year payback. That basically isn't from any one specific reserve. We're just putting that back to the working capital. We're pulling that out of the unconditional grant. So once again, we have no indication at this point. Well, it wasn't going back to the unconditional. So if you're in pretty good shape. Yeah, do you ever have enough of here? Probably not. But I don't think we're going to be in a situation where we're going to have to come back and say, oh, we're in dire straits here. We're going to have something kind of happen to support reserve level. We do have existing plans and phasing plans in place. See the course on. I think we're still in good shape.
Thank you for that. Through your Mercedes. Yes, I share your belief that healthy reserves are essential. And so I'm comforted by your words. Thank you.
So going to approve each of these one at a time, except for the first two, because we've already dealt with two of them, 5A and B. So can I have someone read those? Recommendation, Deputy Mayor Black and Councilor Henry, all in favor, that is carried. 5C, John.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Senes. This will go probably to Lane as well, the development charges. And again, I just need to understand, and right now I don't, so I appreciate you educating me. In 2025, we expended 138, just north of $138,000 from development funds for various department needs as is appropriate. But my question is about the continuity of the unfunded amounts and development charges. That's what I need to understand. So the running balance of each of the departments, according to the chart, it looks like it's going forward from 2026 to 2029 and exactly the same. Could you explain these projections in light of the township needs and the changes to development charges that are being brought about by Bill 60? Because after all, the province and the feds are saying and doing some things that are going to be affecting development charges and what we can charge and money that we're going to have available. So I just, could you explain why or how the charges going forward, 2026 to 29 are exactly the same. How you come up with these projections in light of township needs and in light of the changes to development charges being brought about by Bill 60?
Sure, to you, Madam Mayor. In the body of the report, speak to the fact that we typically talk to development charges, reserves, things like that as part of the budget process. And occasionally, Richard presents it as part of our financial system. So we've always felt in the past that based on the documentation provided to council, or maybe how we're going to fund the project or things like that, that we were touching on in an adequate way. With Bill 60 and based on some of the feedback from our consultant, we suggested that some additional schedules should be presented to council. So that's really what this is about. Specifically the unfunded amount. So some of this, of course, goes way back. If you look at the Young's Point Fire Hall, how long? But a large rationale for that fire hall was growth. So there's a large component that was identified as those. When we did our last development charges study, that number was now down to 132,000. So really what this is saying, so I understand where this Janice asked me a similar question. So we have a running balance, and then we have what did we bring in 2025 towards that project? So we brought in $6,853. So the number as of today is 126,100. I only put in the annual allocations that we actually receive. So this is not projecting where it's going to go. This is just saying as of today, we're at 126.1. Then next year, similar report would come forward to council, and it might say next year, oh, we brought in $9,000. So that number just goes down. Yeah. So those numbers being the same for all those other years, it's just because we haven't received those funds yet. So these placeholders. So it will just build and build, and so it provides a framework for future treasurer's reports that would say this is how it's going to be, and in 2029 we have a number, which is the running balance number. Ideally, then that would just start the reporting.
Thank you, through Mary. Again, so just for clarity, these are unfunded. These were eligible costs for those projects that we never collected enough development charges to offset. So it's just a running balance of what's still unfunded.
That's correct. In terms of we just didn't have the development to be able to collect.
But we're eligible funds.
Yeah,
Eligible to be used.
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So questions on that? If not, we should possibly close. Who is all in favor? There is anything. So now we're looking at asset management before John.
Yeah, thank you. Again, through you to Lane, the report notes that the asset management plan is significant because it informs the township's investments and budget deliberations. And the asset management plan is something that is we have to have, and it's a very valuable document. And yet some of the comments in the report I find with jarring. For example, I'll quote, it says there are still outstanding data and a lack of comprehensive strategy that needs to be implemented as the township moves forward with capital investments. It states further on, we need more work on our existing data and need to develop a solid 10-year capital plan that is endorsed by council. And then later it says the management team needs to take time to discuss ground proof, edit data, and set and move forward with a common mindset. So this set off sirens in my mind. Maybe it shouldn't have, but it seems to me that the asset management plan is something we must have, and it's something that is a good tool, as it says at the beginning, and yet we're having trouble getting it together. So some of the work has been done. Some of the work is fine work has been done, but it says later on in the report to fix the problem, and I quote again, this area quite simply needs more resourcing. And later it's stated again, I'll quote, dedicated human resources to the AMP remain a major stumbling block for moving the plan forward and needs to be addressed in the next term of council. So perhaps you could, I mean, don't have to restate the report. We've all read the report, but is something that council we'll probably be looking at is the hiring of another person or the reallocation of a person's responsibilities, or what will be needed in order that we can get our asset management plan to the state that it can do the job that it's supposed to do.
Okay, to you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, so this is about as blunt of a report as I could provide the panel.
Yeah.
I think we say.
Right.
That's the alarms, yeah.
To say that we've made progress and we have made progress significantly. It's never as fast as finance would like it to be made. It's never as fast as the managers would like. But it's a bit of maybe a reality check to say that I think we do really great at our capital planning, our capital programs that we lay out. We just completed Strickland Street, which was a 2 or 3 year project. Water Street, 2 or 3 year project. But we need to look longer. And so the steps Adam's taking this year at the water and sewer plant, but to the pilot, to put in citywide, taking out there. All those things build and start to build momentum. Start to do that. So it's, and of course, this past year that we're finding in finances, there's so much effort to renewal and training and different things like that, that this aspect of work tends to slide off the desk, and then it has to be brought back on when there's legislative things like this that are required. Right. So yeah, it is enough to say we've tried it for really, I guess, ever since Adam was in a different role in the finance department. I know I missed him when he left the department and took on the challenges at Public Works, and we tried to offset that with additional time in the deputy treasurer position, and we just haven't recognized that yet because there's new staff in there and new staff in that stuff. A solution, I think, would be having a dedicated resource to this. It's not just looking at it whenever Adam and I find time or whenever Mike and I find time, but somebody working at this 35 hours a week, reporting back to the deputy treasurer and myself on progress, trying to put together that longer term view of what we, this is in no way saying that the projects we've completed since we were supposed to have a 10-year plan in place were not worthy, that we're not well thought out, we're not financed appropriately or things like that. It's just that our window tends to be 2 to 3 years and it needs to be 5 and 10 years. Right. And even looking ahead to the new councilors that would come in, to be able to have a document that I could provide to new councilor or potential councilor. Like, here's what's on the books. Here's what's the next 10 years look like. Do you want to be part of that? Right. I really can't do that. So our document that we look at instead with a strategic plan, we look at the roads needs study, which is being renewed next year. We look at some of the other service plans and Parks and Rec that council develop like that. But you have to marry all those plans together. Really, the asset management plan should do that. I appreciate the question.
Well, thank you. And it is in no way meant as a criticism. It's trying again to understand, because it seems to me that the 2 points that were made, both in your comments now and in the report, is that it's a staffing issue and it's a mindset issue. Am I right in saying that?
I think that staffing, I think, and just general resourcing, that we looked at maybe using part-time staff and some consultants, and not a big fan of consultants, and they complete a report and there it is on the shelf if you don't have that resource in house. Right. And the others on the mindset, it's just natural for department managers to be pulled to the project of the day. But like it's a great example. You look at that, there's a new campground. Just implement this new campground. Right? So that's going to be priority in the spring, as opposed to looking into that. Adam's gearing up for resurfacing and microsurfacing or whatever. Right? So get a pick the time of both.
Just to comment, the early stages of the program, I think it was a bit of a off the side of the desk type of thing. And I think it's at that point now where the resources have to be put to it to make it work. Because in the long term, it's the best planning tool where we're going to have as council. And the timing is right for looking at reorganization, how we do things, from an administrative point of view, and I think, yeah. This is, as you say in your report, it's a key thing that needs to be considered, in any reorganization, we do down the road.
Question. Asked to receive. Or. Favor. Fine.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Senes. 5E with the Lily Lake Road changes that are happening. I'm assuming all affected property owners within Selwyn have been notified and consulted on this. Have any concerns been raised with township staff from them, and will the proposed pedestrian and cycling improvements connect to any of existing or planned active transportation infrastructure within Selwyn Township?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, this is really dealing with the intersection itself. It is a city intersection. So the affected property owners are actually being consulted directly by the city.
Awesome, thank you. Just to follow up, it might just be me, but I think that there's a drafting error in the resolution because it says, whereas the city project will result in a portion of non-restricted travel upon Tower Hill Road, allowance being located within the township, it repeats it.
Sorry, which is it first whereas statement? Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. Yes, it is. Right. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And just so you know about this particular report. Council Boyko, you had asked for this to be pulled as well. All right, have someone move it, please. Councilor Henry Levin, seconded by Deputy Black, all in favor, carried. And now we're at organizational policy updates. I'm not sure which one you want to pull, John. Brian Watts, policy 2.1. Do you want to do that?
Yeah, 2.1 Code of Ethics. So most of the amendments appear to be administrative in nature here, but I do have a question, and it would relate to the political activity and social media provisions. Can staff explain how those provisions would be interpreted for employees acting as private citizens outside of the workplace?
Kim.
With regards to their social, sorry, through you, Mayor, with regards to their social media activity?
With regards to social media activity, yes.
So I think to answer your question, if I'm clear, the policy is quite broad in the sense that it's asking or informing employees that their actions need to ensure that there's confidence in their public role, right? That they're going to maintain neutrality. And so this policy, I believe, would extend to their social networking activities. There is on number 7 of the policy, it does address social networking, and that, we need to maintain any confidentiality and proprietary information, and that it must not in any way conflict with their role as a township employee. And so that would extend to ensuring that they are seen as impartial and neutral.
Appreciate it. So in short, for an employee of Selwyn Township, it doesn't end when we leave the door at the end of the day. We are representatives of our.
With regards to staff, yes.
Thank you.
We've also asked her about 7.17 to be pulled.
Yes, thank you. 7.7, so respect to workplace policy. More of an operational amendment or adjustment, I guess. If the CAO is the respondent, who receives the complaint and who has the authority to initiate and oversee the investigation then? What if the HR coordinator is the one that's the complaint? Yeah. Thanks for that clarity.
Which one do you want?
I think I'm looking at the Code of Ethics 2.1 and respect in the workplace, 2 questions. With respect to the Code of Ethics, I looked at the policy as is written, and I also looked up from the officer of the Integrity Commission, and the 2 are consistent. But I'm wondering, this is talking about municipal staff participating in political activity. I assume they mean partisan political activity, but anyway, so I'm wondering how this fits both the policy and what the Integrity Commissioner says with people's charter rights, freedom of expression, telling people that they can't express political views or participate in the public process. Is it in violation of people's charter rights?
Jennifer.
Through you, Madam Mayor. It's a balancing that staff would be clear that they do have the rights to make processes, but they need to be very cautious that they're not employing. They find a connection. They can't share anything that they would acknowledge for their in their voice with municipality. They can't appear as representing the municipality today. We're closed. They have a sovereign logo on. Yes, events. So staff needs to be very sensitive to that and aware of that. They feel to be the political process, but they need to rather their line as a citizen, and then they deliver that 5 minutes. It would be representing the
Okay, if I can ask one more. So if a person was employed by the Selwyn Township and an election was coming, municipal, federal, or provincial, would they be able to put a sign on their lawn?
Generally, it depending, I think the staff need to be cautious with what their goal is with the municipality. But like staff, absolutely. They don't have that position with that we're doing with the folks that are sitting, they need to be much more aware and cautious of what that would imply to the public because of the direct relationship that they have with the politician.
Okay, thank you. That helps me to understand. My second question is with respect to the workplace. And this is in that document, and it goes to what is it, number 6D, and it's the wording that I wondered about, and it's the very last, in red, the very last paragraph. It says employees, and I understand the point that's being made here completely, but I'm wondering if it's saying something that we don't want it to say. It says, this is about employees that are bringing a complaint forward about they've been harassed or something has happened. And it says employees reporting concerns in good faith without malice involving the CAO, regardless of the outcome of the investigation, will not be subject to any form of discipline. Okay, period. This is the problem I have. Say a person brings something forward and there was a review done, and then the review says, no, there's nothing really that we're going to do here. I don't think this rises to the level that we have to take action. Well, it says the Township of Selwyn will, however, discipline or terminate anyone who brings false and malicious complaint. Well, if a complaint is brought forward, a proper investigation is done, and then it's decided that, well, the CAO hasn't done anything to rise to that level, so we will just, it's therefore taken care of. Well, that wasn't brought maliciously. It was just the determination went a different direction. But according to this, it still says that person will be terminated or disciplined. So could or should that be changed to? Because we want people to bring things forward. But if I was sitting there and I think I've been harassed and I'm thinking, well, if it's determined that this is going to be taken, judged against me, I can get fired for even bringing this forward. So I'm not going to bring it forward. I'm just going to continue to suffer. So should that last sentence say, the Township of Selwyn will, however, discipline or terminate anyone who brings forth, don't say will, say may. The township may, however, discipline or terminate anyone who brings false or malicious complaint.
Yeah, the wording is whatever you decide. I see this a little bit differently. The exact same paragraph falls in a different section of the policy as well, under section 5 in the general reporting procedure. So it's not just if you're bringing a complaint against the CAO or involving the CAO. Once an investigation happens and it's determined that there's no course of action, that there wasn't harassment or discrimination, it doesn't mean or imply that there was a malicious intent. Right. And so throughout it, the way I perceive this policy and the intent of that paragraph would be if throughout that investigation, it's determined that that complaint was brought on maliciously or with bad intent, with no basis behind it, then, you know, the paragraph gives the Township of Selwyn the ability to discipline or terminate that employee for bringing forth a malicious complaint.
Yeah, thank you. If I could, yeah, I understand malicious, but false just means the judgment didn't agree with you. That wasn't malicious. It was just the determination didn't go the way you wanted it to go. I would feel better if it said may, but I'll surrender to the rest of council if that's nitpicking.
Thank you through you, Mayor Senes. I think your last statement was false, as you will submit, but I will support changing it to may.
Okay, in that case, I'll move it. Change will to may. Not just there, but in the other places where, but yeah.
So you're thinking, what are the legal complications of using will versus may or shall or should? Because we're into semantics. Let's do this. Like, well, it's important because there's legal consequences.
Yeah.
Well, I think from my perspective, the employer has an obligation to ensure that we have a safe workplace. And so if someone was found to bring forth a malicious or false accusation, of course, based on the facts of what we're looking at, I feel like these generalities are complicated. But we have an obligation to take action to ensure that we're not allowing malicious or false accusations to go unrecognized. Is that fair? Yeah, so I think we have that obligation.
And if I could, the word may there would still allow that to happen. Yeah. But yeah, I won't repeat.
Yeah, well, I think, you know, will is definitely a stronger word than may. To Mary's point, perhaps the will does support, the township taking action if there is a false or malicious complaint. And I think there's varied levels of discipline, right? So, if it's the first time, maybe it's just, and it's somebody willingly submitting something that is proven to be false. So there's no basis to it. So there could be a misunderstanding, and that wouldn't be false or malicious. That's a misunderstanding. But if it's willfully false information or with malicious intent, then this would say, we will take some type of disciplinary action. That could simply be a notation in a file in a conversation. If it happens again, it goes to the next one. So I think there's those varying needs of discipline that would come into play before your committee. And that's maybe where you have a little bit more flexibility, but still have the direction here if the township is responsible to make sure that the complaint process is being used appropriately and not inappropriately against any member of staff.
Okay, with that, if I could, through your merit, with that, I am satisfied. Then, thank you.
The way it is.
To leave it the way it is, yeah.
So, someone please move the organizational policy updates that are before us. Councillor Henry, second. Oh, wow. Oh, you have a you didn't tell me. This is.
Mother, may I?
You're ambushing me here. Which one?
Well, I got looking at something in John's. Will I? Made me look at policy number 2 on gifts and benefits, referring to hospitality. So moderate hospitality. Just curious, some municipalities set a limit. Would receive this moderate hospitality. So is it a limit we should set, or that is the level set? What would limit holds in that part? We have a set number there, and should there be ever an obligation to report? Do it. Just it does leave it open. I thought law of legal things, and I got some exposure.
Yeah.
To date, I'm not aware of this being an issue that happens often. I can for sure do some research around what other municipalities are doing around this. And then at the next organizational policy review, include that information for sure.
So we pull policy 2.1 from this list. We need to do some additional.
Well, I don't know if, sorry, through you, I don't know if you want me to pull it because that comment is separate from the recommended changes. But I can make a note of that question with regards to looking into whether or not it would be appropriate to put some limits on gifts and benefits.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
All right, so we did have a mover and seconder for the organizational policy updates. All in favor? Very, thank you. And the remaining consent items, which were correspondence, and I'm doing it real quick, and the committee report. And someone who goes. Councillor Coolidge, Deputy Mayor Black, all in favor? Carried. Okay, so I'm sure staff know, and probably council, this is Jan's last council meeting. Lucky Jan.
Made it long just for you.
Yeah.
It's got nothing to do with an election year. It's about you.
So I have a couple of things to say about Janice. She's had an extraordinary career. She began with the former township at the Ennismore in September 1988 as in a municipal training program. And in less than a year, her manager, 12, if I could interrupt. Okay, all right. In less than a year, her manager, who was the CAO, Norm Kyle, offered her the position of deputy clerk treasurer. In January 1998, the former townships of Ennismore and Smith amalgamated, and she was made clerk deputy treasurer. 3 years later, Janice was involved in yet another amalgamation with the former village of Lakefield, and in 2001, she was appointed clerk deputy treasurer. When her manager and mentor, Norm Kyle, retired as CAO in June 2008, the council of the day, of which I was part, appointed Janice for what is now Southern Township as our CAO. For 37 years, she's been the steady hand guiding our township's administration. Elected officials come and go every 4 years. But throughout these changes, Janice has been a constant source of expertise, stability, and sound advice. Her ability to work professionally with different councils, support staff, and serve residents has earned the respect of everyone who has had the privilege of working with her. She's provided professional leadership, institutional knowledge, and unwavering dedication to public service. And don't cry. Through changing priorities, evolving regulations, and countless community initiatives, she has overseen a workforce of approximately 99 employees, while ensuring the effective day-to-day operation of the township. Her commitment, integrity, and leadership have helped shape this community we know today, and which you all know I think is the best community in the world. Say it often, and I believe in it. Again, thanks to, in part, to what Janice has accomplished. The legacy Janice leaves behind will continue to benefit our township years to come. On behalf of council, staff, and residents, we extend our sincere gratitude for her remarkable service, and we wish her every happiness and well-lived. Now, I have a certificate that I'd like all of council to come up to present to
Can I say
Janice.
a couple words for Sherry?
Oh, absolutely.
I did make myself some notes so that I started the waterworks. I was hoping to,
Yeah.
hoping to avoid that, but I do
Yeah.
appreciate your kind words, really. I'm very, very grateful for the opportunity I've had to serve this community for the last 37 years. Again, I started at 12. And as you said, over that time, there's just been an enormous amount of change and growth, and then the responsibilities and expectations of local government. Looking back, you wouldn't recognize it today, but all of those challenges and opportunities that change brings with me were engaging, demanding, and rewarding. So I can't say that I've enjoyed every day, but I think in the grand scheme of things, it's been a great ride. And I'm just so tremendously thankful for the talented, dedicated professional members of the management team and staff that I've had to work with over the years, current and past. And with the support of our elected officials, who've been very supportive all along the way. We've been very successful in navigating all those changes. We've shown ourselves to be a leader in our field, and we've just accomplished a great deal in society. So, it's been wonderful, and I think working as a team, we have shown how we can work together to accomplish great things. And probably just as importantly, we've had a lot of fun along the way. So I thank everybody for that, and I would certainly.
So again, if we can meet in the middle here and get, we also have a check for you. And there's a gift. Yeah. Have your check. Any other business? Any other business? No? Okay. With bylaws. Madam Clerk.
Thank you. So bylaw 57, the parking bylaw, yes. 26 years in the making. 58, the AMPS bylaw. 59, the hearing officer bylaw. 60, to appoint hearing officers and Rutherford prosecutions. And 61, to appoint provincial offenses officers through Maxima Protection Inc.
Okay, can I have someone move those bylaws? Counselor Boyko and Counselor Poulos, all in favor, that is carried. And the confirming bylaw, Deputy Mayor Black and Counselor Boyko, all in favor, carried. Adjournment, Counselor Henry, Deputy Mayor Black, all in favor, it's carried. Thank you. Thank you.